Today's show brought to you by our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Be sure to check out the 3 upcoming Breeders' Cup Challenge Series win and you're in races from Belmont Park on Saturday, June 11th. Live coverage starts at 3 p.m. Eastern on CNBC and 5 p.m. Eastern on NBC for the Hillendale Metropolitan Handicap, aka the Met Mile, the Ogden Phipps, and the Jaipur. In each case, the winners are going to get at least $30,000 in entry fees paid by the Breeders' Cup, $10,000 reward to the nominator, and a $10,000 travel allowance for horses stabled outside of Kentucky. The Jaipur gets an automatic entry into the $1 million Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint on November 5th. The Hillendale Metropolitan Handicap gets an automatic entry into the $1 million Big Ass Fans Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile on November 5th. And the Win and You're In Ogden Phipps gets an automatic entry into the $2 million Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff on November 5th. We're going to be covering these races throughout the course of the show. We're also going to be looking ahead elsewhere on the network to the Win and You're In action happening at Royal Ascot next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Keep it locked to the In the Money Media Network to hear more about all of it. And thanks again to our friends at the Breeders' Cup. Hello and welcome to the In the Money Players podcast. I'm here now, but I'm not going to be here for the whole show. Going to be having some guest hosting help from our man Spencer Luginbuhl of Redboard Rewind. He'll be up in a minute doing some capping on what you might call the simulcast portion of the show, as it is Belmont Day. We've got Belmont covered elsewhere on the network, including our Final Answer show. You can find that one where you get the podcast or on the YouTube channel. Me, JK, and Steve Christ. Lots of additional Belmont coverage, of course, on our Plus service, inthemoneypodcast.com/plus. But we will be talking about some of these races in the first segment as well. We're going to be doing a little, you might call it a Horse Players Happy Hour preview, the way that the show shook out on Thursday. Matt Bernier and I had a chance to go over 5 of the big races at Belmont on Saturday. We're going to bring that to you to give you a little bit of a flavor of that show. If you think our normal act is loosey-goosey, wait till you see Horse Players Happy Hour, production meetings in the middle of the show, breaking the fourth wall, you name it. We get very, very silly and we have a lot of fun. And we encourage folks to join us because those Horse Players Happy Hours are happening every Thursday from now until basically right up until the Breeders' Cup. And this is a chance to win your BCBC seat with $20,000 basically in the form of 2 BCBC seats added to the prize pool at no cost to players. It does cost $20 to play every week in the feeders that feed into the Saturday BCBC qualifiers. But the good news about that is that all the house cut goes to charity. The TAA, the TRF, Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation, our founding partners, who you hear so much about on these shows. So I encourage you to check it out. Horse Players Happy Hour games go live usually by Tuesday. You can find the way to enter on horseplayers.com, and then you can join Matt and I on Thursday from 4 to 5. And for a little taste of what that programming is like, which you can find usually on my Twitter, on the In the Money Media Twitter, on the In the Money Media YouTube page, and also via Breeders' Cup social media. I'll tell you what is a good thing to do. Subscribe to that YouTube channel. You know, if you want to rate it and give some of our videos nice comments, that also helps people find the show. But if you subscribe, you'll get notifications when we're going to go live. And if you want to see what that's all about, let's go to it right now. Real fast. Do you have Belmont tickets yet? No? You want some? Well, I'll tell you what. You make a donation to the racetrack chaplaincy, and you can get some really good seats. How do you do it? trfinc.org/players. You can find the link to buy your Belmont tickets there. Get them before it's too late. Limited quantities available. trfinc.org/players. Next up in the show, so happy to be joined by Matt Bernier. We are going to be talking about the 3 Win and You're In races that are happening this weekend. You've heard me talk about them in an ad elsewhere in the show. Now you're going to hear us getting into the form. The first of the 3 is race number 7 at Belmont on Saturday. It's the Ogden Phipps, a Win and You're In race for the Longines Distaff. And Matt, I'm very curious to get your idea of the winner.
Well, I mean, Latruska is just rock solid. She shows up and runs her race time and time again. She's often been afforded comfortable leads, as was the case, I thought, in the Apple Blossom, all things considered. She went out there, was able to gamely hang on. Clariere couldn't run her down because the pace situation was a bit disadvantageous. I guess to me, the X factor in the race and the way that I'm going to go, it's a bit out on a limb, but how far out on a limb can you be in a 5-horse field? Search results. I feel like Chad's horse can at least be close enough. I don't know that the Ortiz boys are going to go, banging heads early on. I could see it rad aboard search results, just kind of flanking Latruska. Keep in mind, he knows Latruska as well as anyone. He's ridden her a million times. And search results, if you just look at the buyer and say, oh, well, 96, she's not fast enough, that's fair. Depending on other figs that you may consult, one in particular, she's extremely fast. And I don't know if it's going to be enough to win, but she should get first run. And I guess you could look at it the other way and say she's going to be the one that unfortunately has to do the dirty work. I'm going to approach it more in line that I think the other girls are going to have too much to do because the pace could be on the more moderate side. I'll give search results a shout.
My idea in here was to play it mostly for an exacta. And the most likely exacta, I think, is Latruska over Clariere. I could see a world in which Malathaat is ridden more aggressively than we're used to seeing, though she has nearly led at every call before under weird short field circumstances before. I don't think we're going to see her on the lead at all, but I don't think we're going to see her as far back as she might be. And then there's also that possibility of search results attacking early if they do decide that they need to do the dirty work on search results. As you intimated, there was a world in which that might happen. So I think those two are going to hang on one second, Perrin. Those two are going to get exhausted, and I think Clariere is going to come and finish. Perrin, come say hi to the crowd. This is the weekly visit from Perrin.
I need my guitar thing. I know my guitar thing. My Taekwondo backpack.
I don't know where it is, but you do need to bring your sparring gear today, Master Kim said. So Loli can help you out. Say goodbye to everybody. All right. And I will not be picking you up today. Mommy's going to pick you up because I got to go to the track. You can't make this stuff up, folks. Let's move on, Matt. I think I finished where I was going with that. Let me just make the point more clearly because I was a little distracted. I just think Clariere with her finish might have a tactical advantage late because those two are going to be closer to Latruska, who I think is a little bit of a freight train with a pace, best numbers pace advantage. And I do think it's interesting and notable, to bring it back to the Breeders' Cup for a second, that, obviously disappointed by the results of the Breeders' Cup last year, which I think was mostly a result of the pace in that race and how crazy it was. But, remembering how she was training leading up to that race, I think she was a little over the top. Her season started back in January last year. She had a lot of races. And look, I'm all for that. And I certainly didn't hold the Breeders' Cup against her when voting for an Eclipse Award. But this seems like a campaign designed to win the Breeders' Cup. And I think we're very likely to have a fresher Latruska at the end of the season. We'll see how it plays out when it comes to Saturday and the Ogden Phipps. The next win and you're in race we're going to talk about is race number 8, the Grade 1 Jaipur. This one being a win and you're in race for the turf sprint. And Matt, I've been talking too much. I'm going to throw it right back to you. Who's going to win this thing?
So hard. It's such a hard race. I don't like turf sprints because I'm not particularly good at them. But B, when you get a race like this where aside from Arrest Me Red, or a Casa Creed, I suppose, fits in there as well. Aside from those two, you could really make a case for any of them. I ended up going back to my old friend Gear Jockey. I thought his run at Churchill was solid. He checked at a pretty critical moment. He was part of that sort of pace skirmish early on, had to steady out of there, rallied, and just flattened out at the end of the run. The Shakertown 2-back at Keeneland, no, he wasn't great, but no one was going to beat Golden Pal with the way that he ran. He never has struck me as a Gulfstream kind of turf horse. I think he's more of a 5.5, may even be a hair short. He's a 6 to 7 type, in my opinion. He's not quite a miler or a mile and a 16 type, although he's won at those distances before. I think he is a 1-turn 6 or 7 type, maybe even a 1-turn mile, maybe the Woodbine mile down the road. But I think Gear Jockey is probably a little bit dirtied up based on some of these last running lines. I don't love 6 to 1 in a field like this. I would want something, 8 or 10. I don't know if he'll go off at that price.
You might get that.
But I went with Gear Jockey. And I think one other thing to at least throw out there, Jose Lezcano's reunited. And Lezcano had been aboard for that run of 4 races where this horse ran really, really well. And I say, 4, I'm including the Breeders' Cup, but the turf sprint at Kentucky Downs, the Troy at Saratoga, and then the N2X at Saratoga. I mean, they're arguably the best races he's ever run, and Lezcano was aboard for all of them. So they get reunited. We'll find out. Gear Jockey is where I'm going to go.
I like Gear Jockey as well, and I mean, I just thought that trip last time was horrendous, and the horse showed an awful lot of grit. Very, very hard to check like that one up in the Vanguard at 5.5, and then still come on and make a menacing move, and still even stayed on okay at the end after getting tired. This is a good horse. A joke I made to JK on the Final Answer show, and folks want much more on the Belmont card, definitely check out the Final Answer show on our YouTube channel or our podcast feed with me and JK and the great comedian Stephen Christ. But the I said Gear Jockey collects trips like our kids collect Pokemon cards, and at some point you wonder, is that a character flaw? Is there something about this horse's physicality, the opposite of a push button horse, say, the kind of horse that gets into trouble? And that is kind of why the 6-1 isn't overly appealing to me. But in this tough field, I think that you could easily get more than that. The other one that I will mention in this spot is the 13 Gregorian Chant. Finished ahead of Gear Jockey last time. And the angle with him, and we'll get a line on this on Friday from how Caravel makes out, and I guess it's the Intercontinental. The inside on the turf, those days at Churchill, it was that typical thing you see sometimes after the rain where the inside did not seem like it was good. If that becomes a confirmed thing that the horses that were down there are running a few lengths better, I mean, if Gregorian Chant runs a few lengths better, Gregorian Chant's going to win the race. So it's not the easiest post, but I think Gregorian Chant is an interesting one to keep in mind. I like the chances of Rosario to maybe work a good trip. And then in terms of your exotics and everything, I can't fault Arrest Me Red, who looks like the best speed, or Casa Creed, who probably looks like the best closer. So I'll probably mess around with all four of those in various combinations in the Jaipur. Any other thought on the Jaipur before we move it along?
No, because at that point I would just be spraying, because I think you've got.
You could talk about 7 of them, couldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you could probably even go deeper than that. In a field of 13, it would not surprise me at all if I'm making it up. The only one that I guess I just really have a hard time seeing is Gray's Creek, but beyond that, you can at least make interesting cases, albeit some of them more likely than others, for I think the vast majority of the field.
Yeah, it's really true. It's a question of where you want to take a shot. And it is interesting in a sequence that has some races that are really nailed down to try. If you can, rather than fully spread, if you can just find the long shot or long shots you like, you have a chance to make the seemingly simple rest of the sequence work for you instead of against you.
The other thing, Pete, if you think about it from a multi-race standpoint, if for whatever reason, let's say you believe it is Chalk City outside of that race, rather than just spread, find, and again, this is where, we've talked about Steve Christ, and we'll talk about him again, the idea of using the ABC method. I think that's a race where you get really aggressive, even with a price, because I think everybody's going to be looking at it saying, oh, I got to go wide there. I got to cast a wide net. Well, if you like, I'm making it up, a 15-1 shot in that spot, play them for $10 as part of a multi-race wager, as opposed to, just buying the race and saying all move on kind of thing.
Yeah, you're going to lose equity doing that because it's so master of the obvious in this pick 6 sequence to go single spread. Every ticket is going to be that. That's going to be very, very hard way to make money, unless, of course, you got a non-obvious single in one or two of those other races. One of the horses that will be the biggest single in the pick 6 comes up in race number 9, where we've got more Breeders' Cup win, and you're in action for the Hillendale Metropolitan Handicap, better known as the Met Mile. And this, and you know how I love saying this, win and you're in action for the big ass fans, Dirt Mile, Matt. And this is the return to the races of Flightline, who was so hyped heading into the last start, his first in graded company in the Grade 1 Malibu. And then he delivered on the hype in that race, running faster at every call and putting on just a massive performance. Of course, it's not like it's all sunshine and tamales here. There's some issues potentially with Flightline. He's leaving California for the first time. He's never faced a horse as good as Speaker's Corner before, and he's never gone this far. At the end of the day, are you with Flightline or against him?
I don't know if this is a fair answer. I'm not against either of the inside two. That's my opinion. It feels like a match race. I think they're the two speeds in here. I like Happy Saver. I think he's a good little horse. Aloha West is a Breeders' Cup winner. But the top two in the market are just head and shoulders above the other three from a numbers standpoint, and they both happen to be the speeds in the race. So if it's not Flightline, it's Speaker's Corner. If it's not Speaker's Corner, it's Flightline. Purely on numbers, it's Flightline. But having said that, that Carter, I know it was a very, very tepid pace. Speaker's Corner ran. That was a big, big effort from this horse, and you can't help but notice he just continues to get better and better and better with each race. I'll be very, very interested to see how the whole thing plays out. It's arguably the worst betting race of the day, but from an entertainment standpoint, it might be the best race of the day.
Oh, I mean, you got some superstars and a potential, just absolute freak on display in Flightline. My idea from the race from a betting point of view is to hope that Alvarado and Pratt ride it like a match race. If they back it down and they do it that way, nothing can get involved. But I mean, I think Alvarado's best chance is to sit on, I'm not saying to duel with Flightline, but at least sit on his flank and give him something to think about and make him use every bit of that early speed early with the thought of bottoming out the petrol and trying to take him on the turn. If they do that cat and mouse at high speed and it gets hot early, I could easily see one of the two faster horses cracking and old friend Aloha West coming running down the center. Probably not to win. I'd bet him to win at 10-1. I don't know that we'll get that, but you could. And I like his chance. I like his chance to beat one of them for second at what I'm guessing that price is going to be, as opposed to the, even money exacta that I expect Flightline and Speaker's Corner to be. So that's my idea. That's how I'm going to try to take this race and make it a little bit bettable. If you squint, can you see it, or am I banging my head against the wall and they're just going to run 1-2 around the track?
Well, no, I mean, first thing, as far as your price on Aloha West, I think personally, Flightline's probably 3-5, maybe 2-5. But I think Speaker's Corner comes in. I think he comes in from 8-5. I think he's probably even money. And if you have that, again, just purely on math, everybody else has to be double digits.
Yeah.
So
money's got to go somewhere.
I think you'll get Aloha West probably pretty close to that 10. My thought, if you were really, really just absolutely hell-bent on playing the race and it wasn't part of a multi-race sequence, I would probably try to do something like a cold superfecta, where it's Flightline over Speaker's Corner, and then take your pick. Or maybe you end up, sort of, I don't want to say boxing, but going 3-4, 3-4 in third and fourth. I would probably try to separate them. And granted, you would need to press this thing really, really hard. So I'm making it up. Play a $25 or $30 superfecta of 1, 2, 3, 4 or 1, 2, 4, 3, and hope to, realistically, what does that come back? If it comes in that way, you're going to get $10.
I would have to look at that and figure out on the math, because it's so weird. But there is a super in this 5-horse field. But the weird thing about there being a super in this 5-horse field is unless you're seeing something I'm not, I don't see how Informative can not run last. So
right. I think it's one of those things I think it's one of those things that I don't know that many people, that's the first thing that goes to their mind in a race like this. Right. I think a lot of people look at it and go, oh, well, if I can turn the 1-2 exacta into, I'm making it up 7-5, I'm going to do that. As opposed to turning the 1-2 exacta along with the 4-3 third and fourth into 8-1. Is it $8 for $1? I don't know. It's hard to say, but that would be my kind of idea. If you were really, and granted, you got to be scratching a little bit there to be getting involved that deep. But I would play some sort of a cold superfecta of, $20, $30, $40, $50 and just hope that you're right.
Have a little bit of fun. Try to pick the race and just get it right. It's okay sometimes, especially in a day like this. You're not going to have success trying to own every combination of everything going on. It's not that kind of day. You got to take some chances. You got to make some bets that, you're fully, I mean, as you should most days, the idea of trying to lock everything up all the time is folly, but particularly on a day like today, take some chances and just try to pick the race. I like that idea. One combination, two combinations in the super, and see what can happen. With my Aloha West idea, I think that could really potentially pay too. I may go back to the drawing board and look at that one a little bit. Let's move on to the featured race of the day, unless you had something else on the Met.
No, but to your point, I mean, if you can split those two with Aloha West, then all of a sudden, I mean, we're talking about a different story where it's going to pay considerably more than it probably should, simply because everyone's going to have the two chalks on top.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We're going to get into the second beer. We're doing a 2-beer show today because we're running. I don't know if I'm going to go to Belmont or just meet the crew at King Umberto's. We're still trying to figure this out. But for today, I'm taking this happy hour concept very seriously. How
far are you from the track?
It's
not to give up your location.
No, it's okay. It's okay. The Brooklyn Bunker is, it's on Google Maps at this point, I think. So it's not much of an issue. It's not far at all as the crow flies. But it'll take me, it could take me 90 minutes to get there.
Yeah,
it's
awful.
Traffic, yeah, it's just terrible. But whatever. I have a ton of work to do. I'm just going to bring the computer, bring the hotspot, sit in the back of the Uber and rock out some writing that we have to do for some other clients. I'll get to work on those on the In the Money Plus content. So we make sure that all those folks get what they're promised. So it'll be cool. But race number 10 is wait a second. No, we're not doing race number 10 because that's not a win and you're in race. Well, you know what? I feel obligated. You've done the Manhattan. Let's talk about the Manhattan real quick. Yeah.
So it's a race in a weird way, and I'm sure this will sound so dumb Saturday afternoon when Chad wins it with one of his horses, but I don't know that I love any of Chad's horses in here. They could all win, but I don't look at this as a year where you've got a bricks and mortar or you've got Instilled Regard or Robert Bruce or one of these horses that I think was really, really good. These are all nice horses, but I don't know that they're head and shoulders above everyone else. I'm kind of done with Gufo. He could win, but A, I think he wants longer, and B, I thought he should have beat Highland Chief. And I've seen a lot of people that like Highland Chief. Maybe he did just finally turn the corner here in the States. I don't know. I think he leaves a bit to be desired. I think that was more a product of the pace and the track itself. I've gone on record saying what I believe about Yabir. I know he is a Breeders' Cup winner. I'm not a huge fan. And in hindsight, might not have been a great Breeders' Cup turf. Santine, I think he's really good. And maybe the blinkers unlocked his potential. But, to Steve Christ's point, the way that he laid it out, I kind of get the impression no one else did any running in that race. And it's hard for me to really get stuck into a short price on a horse that may have just beat a field that didn't show up. I ended up going up with one of my old friends, and it's not Tribhuvan, who, he nearly got home for me last year. Kind of, not really, but In Love. I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but I don't know that he's not a 1.25 mile horse. That's one. Two, I first looked at the running line and I said, boy, you finished last in the Maker's Mark Mile. That had to be a terrible race. And the horses were all finished separated by, a head, a neck, a nose. That Maker's Mark is the livest race you're going to find to this point anyway in the season. You've had horses that have come back. Mason came back and won next out a stake at Belmont with a 100 buyer. Smooth Like Straight finished second with a 103 buyer. The other buyers in the field, aside from Cheryl Spite, 98, 100, 108, 101. You had two other graded stakes winners in there that finished just right in front of In Love. And In Love is a horse that here in the States, his second start off the bench has been a considerable move up. Again, I don't know if he's a 1.25 mile horse, but I don't know that he's not. In a race, if I don't love anyone, why would I want to take a short price? And I'm going to echo the same thing for the Belmont in a moment. I think In Love's a good horse. I think the blinkers are the thing that changed it for him. I'm going to be betting him to win.
I like him too. You heard me on Final Answers talking about it, and the distance is a question mark, but it's not like it's some wild idea that this horse with lots of foreign blood would be able to get the extra 1/4 mile. I love the second off the layoff. I love the form of the last race. I did pick Santine on top. I'm going to go with Santine. I'm not sure if that's right. And this was another one we argued on the show last night about the 1.25 mile breeding. This was one where I can see the point because the dam Sentiero Italia did not want to run a 1.25 mile. but her mom sure did. And she had and the second, I want to say her aunt, I suppose it's a sister of the second dam in horse racing parlance, was also excellent.
Not wrong though.
Yeah, going that far. So I'm thinking, in the hands that he's in and the way that he's developing, I made him my top pick, but I'm going to play it 9-5 in the Manhattan. All right, we've got 5 minutes to race for at Belmont, so we're not going to be talking endlessly about the Belmont Stakes, but we can do 3 minutes on it. And I've yapped about this race in a lot of places, so let's bring it to you for your final answer, Matt Bernier.
First things first, what do we have left in the show? I know Naomi is involved, correct?
Yes, we've got 8 minutes. You thinking put a pin and we'll do this at great length later?
Let's talk about this upcoming race at Belmont.
Okay.
Then we'll run Naomi's piece and we can wrap up with the Belmont Stakes.
I like that. It just means Craig's going to have to edit, but he'll.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Hang on. You're right. I'll do it now. The Belmont. All right. Well, you're going to have to cut that out now anyway because it's going to.
No, it's okay.
The cat's out of the bag.
People know. I'll tee this up as we're giving a taste of the loosey-goosey vibe on Horse Player Happy Hour, so that people know. So everybody now listening to this on the regular late week show, this is the kind of professional broadcasting you get when you tune into Horse Player Happy Hour. Who wins the Belmont Stakes?
Steve Christ will forget more than I'll ever know about horse racing. And I know Jonathan was in lockstep with him. I believe he said he thought Barber Road should be 50-1 in the race and that only neophytes would find him appealing. So I'm
young, to be fair.
Well, I guess so.
I'm
taking all this, I'm listening to it and I'm laughing and I'm going, all right. I mean, he's not wrong based on the way that he's laid it out. My logic is, and he did bring up the point that kind of led me to this horse. There is still a world in which I know he hasn't been super close lately, but there's a world in which he is much closer to the pace on Saturday than he has been in these other races. If you're telling me the half's going to be 48-2 or 48-3, he's not going to be 15 off of it. He can't help but be closer. It's sort of the accordion effect. He's been in races.
The half might be 50 here.
He's been in races lately where the half is 46 and a piece. There's a reason that he's 10, 15 lengths off of it. If they're going 48, I think with the blinkers off and with someone like Joel Rosario aboard, I think he's going to be a hell of a lot closer to the front. I'm not saying he's pushing the pace, but I just don't think he's going to be that far off of it. I could be entirely wrong, but that's the way that I'm looking at it. And if he is in that position, let's say he's 3 lengths off of it, the number that I'm going to throw out on the broadcast on Saturday, the past 20 years, there have been 15 winners with a half mile left to run within 3 lengths of the lead. That to me is the golden number. You need to be at least in that position to make your run rounding the far turn as they hit the top of the lane. I think Barber Road with Rosario aboard, and it's not a knock against Raylu Gutierrez, I think there's a scenario in which this horse can establish that position and go on with it. And the only other thing that I would throw out there, and I'm curious your thoughts, because I know you like Mo Donegal a little bit. How different are these two horses? I know we all talk about, well, Barber Road's just a plotter. He's a plotter. How different, if you just took everything else away from him, how different are the two horses? I know Mo Donegal may have a bit of a better kick, but in the Derby, they both had the same setup. If anything, actually, Barber Road was wider. Mo Donegal was on the rail for the first 3/4 of the race before he ended up going 15 wide. Barber Road was 2-3 path throughout and then went 16 wide. So I guess I'm looking at it saying if Mo Donegal is going to be 5-2 on Saturday and Barber Road's going to be 10-1, I don't think there's 4x separating the two horses. Put it that way.
I think they'll be longer in the price. I mean, I do think Mo Donegal has that very impressive, to me, maybe slow on the commercial figures, would to run back to. Barber Road to me is a cool horse. He is, I mean, it's like break out whatever cliche you want. The ball player who'd run through the wall, whatever it is. He's such a tough fighter.
Scott Nixon.
Yeah. Yes. He's a real overachieving type. I think he's going to get ignored. I think he might get 15-20. I wouldn't talk you off. Sean Borman made a case when we were speaking privately, just of that idea that I mentioned to Steve when I was infamously playing devil's advocate, that he's a horse who ran faster at every point of call last time than he'd done before. That often portends improvement. Look, I didn't pick the horse in my top 3, not my top 4 even, but I think he's a cool horse. I think it's a really interesting case. We will come back to the Belmont Stakes a little bit later in the show. That's going to go for both shows, whether you're watching live on Horse Player Happy Hour or on the Players Podcast. But for the main show right now, I'm going to throw it to Spencer if you're watching. So take it away, Spencer.
And I'd like to welcome in my next special guest on the In the Money Media Players Podcast. It is Dallas Baker from Monmouth Park. Dallas, how are you today?
Good, coming to you live. Obviously, we're talking about Saturday's races, but as we record this, Spencer, it's just about game day for day 1 of 3 at Monmouth on the Friday. So here in the beautiful library where there's lots of leather-bound books of about 300 years old. So it's always quite a special room being here in the Monmouth Park Library.
Always something, a place I've always wanted to check out myself. Got to get down to Monmouth this year for sure. Have never been. I live probably 2 hours away. Got to get over there sooner rather than later. But let's get started in on the first 5 races here from Monmouth Park for this Saturday coming up. I'll be giving pari-mutuel wagering advice. Dallas will go over all the odds and ends for fixed wagering. Race number 1 is a state-bred maiden special weight, 1 1/16 miles, going on the turf course. For me in this race, I kind of got it down to 2 horses. I think Surfing from the 6th post is going to be a little bit dangerous. Has some nice back numbers. Has lost the maiden claiming levels before and is an 11-time starter. Sometimes I really don't like to take, but I didn't find much else in this race. I thought Steel Pier at a price number 2. Definitely another interesting one. Has a couple of back races there at 51 over the good going at Monmouth, going a mile. I think that when I look at down here, this is a horse that might get forgotten with an 0 for 18 trainer, but these are the exact types in a race like this that can definitely spice up exotics and definitely get you on a good winning start for the day. Dallas, give us some breakdown on the odds. Fixed wager.
I'll tell you what, mate. If you land at Steel Pier, you'll be starting the day well. We've opened up Steel Pier at 25 to 1, and should say for anybody, for the small amount of people that might make it to Monmouth, if you wanted to have a bet on Saturday, those markets are up on Friday afternoon. Generally go up on Thursday for the Saturday, and naturally for the Friday as well too on the Thursday. So so Steel Pier is around about a 25 to 1 mark, or $26 in the decimal language. Spencer, our favourite is a horse you didn't mention, Kaz Sweet Heist, down the bottom. As you sort of said, there's no real superstars in this race, but Kaz Sweet Heist seems the logical favourite at around about the $2.80 mark, which is 7 to 4, which isn't a price for you, but somewhere between the 3 to 2 and 2 to 1 mark in fractional odds. And our second favourite is Calypso Band at $4.20, or a fat 3 to 1, as Peter Hornatal likes to refer to it. But favourite Kaz Sweet Heist, expected to go off, and I don't really expect a lot of action in the first race, but that's where it sits at the moment.
Race number 2 for us is an N1X allowance, 6 furlongs on the dirt. These are the type of races that I just love to bet. Only 6 horses in the field, but I think I got some good ones here. I am going to go to one of the favorites here, Dots Dollar, the number 3. Just the fact coming out of that starter allowance with some blue fractions, but had that nice 83, so maybe still running around the high 70. And I thought Last Romance for one of my favorite jockeys, Paco Lopez. Nice win last time out at the state allowance level. Now we end up going to the Open. And I think a lot of times with this kind of class angle, Last Romance is one that people just don't think can beat regular Open level allowance horses, and they end up doing that. I think seeing Paco also with a jockey change for Cathal Lynch, this one for me, I think is going to be my top pick. Do you want to use Dots Dollar as a backup as well?
Yeah, Dots Dollar is probably the logical favourite. Hard to see it being much better than Even Money, I would say, Spencer. That's about its price. Last Romance is 5 to 2, or $3.50 in decimal language. And really, they're the two that are going to sort out the market, really, with the expecting that Dots Dollar will start favourite. For interest, the next 2 in market at $7.50, or a fat 6 to 1, or a skinny 7 to 1, whichever way you want to look at it. For Grooms All Business and Rumjar, they're both on that line of betting. But it does, as far as the battle for favouritism, it does look like it's between Dots Dollar and Last Romance, with Dots Dollar the logical horse to start favourite.
Let's move on to race number 3 from Monmouth. The Open 12-5 to 10-5. Maiden Claimer, 6 furlongs on the dirt. For me, being a big buyer par guy, 52 to 47 I have for this buyer par. Don't really see a lot of horses close to hitting it. A couple back numbers. Give me Sir Cupid from the rail. Paco again. Todd Pletcher. Todd's not shipping out here unless he wants the horse to win. Or maybe the horse isn't exactly New York quality. So we'll have to see where that one goes. Mr. JT, couple of good back numbers, but another one 0 for 12 maiden. Definitely want to use this one as a backup. And I thought at a nice little price, Picard, the 6, out of that special weight with a 40. listen, now they're dropping all the way to the bottom. We know how sometimes this works. The horse was only 4 lengths off and maiden special weight. Maybe they would see a little extra pace in this race and could possibly steal it at 10-1.
Lovely, cool. Well, mate, I should actually give you a bit of a wrap. I think when we first did our preview, which we had to throw in the bin because the meeting was called off, and apologies, phone ringing.
All good.
Hang on 1 sec. That just get rid of that. Yeah, the meeting was called off, obviously, as we know, due to the rain. But you identified a horse, Caliente Run, that has subsequently won, and I think the only horse to win 2 races at the meet so far. So hopefully, and that was at a pretty good price when you identified it. So my point being is to everybody listening to it that whilst you didn't get a chance to see it in that absolute context, I think you found the right horse, and hopefully you've cashed up on that in the last couple of wins, mate.
Mm-hmm. I think too, when looking at Picard as well, just a lot of angles people don't look at. Maiden special weight, much difficult racing compared to the maiden claiming levels. Everyone else in here has kind of lost that level. Always give these types of horses that 10-1 a shot. You're not supposed to win every time with them, but 1 in 10 gets you a nice $22 win mutual. But also, what do you have this horse on at the books for you guys?
Yeah, Picard is $8 or $7-1. The favourite is Sir Cupid from the rails. I mean, Parko, Pletcher from the fence. Pletcher's horses haven't gone enormous here so far yet, but it's hard not to see it favourite. We've got it $2.90, so just a tick under 2-1. Ahead of number 3, Mr. JT, at $3.80. So again, just a tick under 3-1 there. And the next in line is Morisco at $5.50 or 9-2. You should also mention too, Spencer, is how do you see the track playing? My personal view is it's really been dependent on the weather of obviously. I mean, it probably goes without saying how the tracks plays, but the weather heating up here. We haven't had a lot of rain leading into it, and I think as we saw on Sunday last week and as we saw on Monday, out of the 3 days of racing, it was probably the most preferential. I mean, we know Monmouth always usually plays towards favouring on-pace runners, as most tracks do. But I think as we saw we got further and further away from the rain, the more and more it was favouring on-pace and leaders. And we haven't had a lot of rain leading into this day. So I would expect it's going to be favouring on-pace runners / leaders today.
I think too, it's also nice to have a bunch of aggressive jockeys in the colony. Yep. A lot of times when I play New York, we have the old grab a hold for the turf races, which can get kind of difficult. So it's kind of nice if I can see speed on their form. They're most 9 times out of 10 going to go. And I do agree with you. The farther away from the rain, I've noticed, especially just in past years as well with Monmouth.
Yep.
It just speed favoring, or at least stalkers. You try to stay away from the closers for sure.
Yep.
Let's move on to race number 4. It is a starter allowance, 25,000, 6 furlongs on the dirt. In this race, I just kind of felt like Happy Ride was the one to do it. One for the maiden 40. Did absolutely fine that optional 16. Lost by 10 lengths, but was 11-1. I mean, you're going to find always that maybe one horse that has its day. Nothing else in this race. I just feel that this one likes to show speed. Has never been more than 2 lengths off the lead at the start. And like we just talked about with the bias, you want a horse to be on the lead or close. And Happy Ride fits that really well in this race.
Yeah, and look at again. I mean, we're probably repeating ourselves with what we said about Parko in the previous race too. I mean, he's looks an on pace from the fence as well. So they're the two. What you just mentioned, Happy Ride and Little Miss Camille, number 1. They're the two fighting out favouritism. We have Happy Ride a slightly favourite at the moment. It's $2.90 on the decimal, so a roll under 2-1 in fractional language. And ahead of Little Miss Camille at $3.50 or 5-2 in the fractional language. They're clearly the two that are going to fight out the favouritism. And a lot will come down to how heavy the push is for Parko. Got to say, Parko's been our friend. Most people said to us last week, you would have absolutely had a strip out with Parko winning the last 5 races, winning the first 5 races and riding the pick 5. Should say last week, but it was an absolute fill up for us. So Parko, we're erecting a statue of Parko in our offices at the moment. That's for sure. So yeah, but anyway, so for this race, it's $2.90 Happy Ride, $3.50 Little Miss Camille. Next in betting, $7.50 Tindari, number 2.
Let's move on to race number 5, just N1X allowance, 116 miles back on the turf course. This race for me was just kind of wide open. I feel like I got 3 in here that can do it. The number 2, She Fled the Scene, just has that nice allowance race last time out, 3 by 2 lengths. has those nice 72, 73, 76 buyers. Just one that I think could be consistent. Midnight Diva at 6-1. Now I'm just starting to get some prices. I mean, this horse was third in the honeymoon. Now is in an allowance race. I feel like grade 3 form looks pretty good on allowance against allowance foes. Don't want to leave this one out. And I thought Aziza as well from Michelle Hemingway has another couple of nice allowance races from Tampa. And then one also at Belmont. Didn't really run that well. 8x5. Did have a fast pace, but the buyer fits here. And I think when a lot of times people see that 8x5, they might shy away a little bit. We can get some money on the 5 Aziza.
Lovely, cool. So, Spencer, I think you're going to like what I've got to say here, mate. You said Midnight Diva was a 6-1 morning line, is it? You there, mate?
Yep.
Yeah, 6-1 morning line. Do you want 30 to? Does 30-1 sound okay to you?
30-1 sounds fantastic, actually.
Well, that's what we're betting right now, Spencer. So we've gone up 30-1 in, and I've just lost my screen there. And she fled the scene. Number 2 is $12, so 11-1. So a couple of really nice prices there. Hopefully to round out your pick 5, which if people want to follow, you've given them some options there with what a 25-1 chance, an 8-1 chance, and now a 30-1 chance and a 10-1 chance, or thereabouts to bring them home. So, as far as what we're looking at the fixed odds market, there's plenty of value in your set there, mate. So, but Shad Nation, hard to go past. Obviously, again, Paco Lopez, surprise, and Christopher Clement, and obviously bringing some pretty decent form from Belmont and Gulfstream and Keeneland and all of that, which those tracks usually get bet heavily here. So hard to argue that Shad Nation will be probably a pretty well-backed favourite. We've got it around about $2.60, which is a little bit more of more than 3-2. So that looks like being favourite. Next pick, Champagne Horizon, number 1 at $4.40. And Aziza, the horse you mentioned, it's about a 5-1 chance in our early markets or our opening markets, $6 decimal. So, mate, plenty of value there for your followers, Spencer.
Gotta try and do it. I will let people know, though, just the reason I kind of had Shad Nation off the ticket, kind of the same figures as all the other horses in there. Like you said, when I can get 30-1 compared to 2-1, 3-2.
Yep.
The 30-1 over the 3-2 any day. But that is all the time we have with this pick 5. I want to thank my special guest, Dallas Baker, for coming on and talking to us. Thank you so much, my man.
Thanks, Spencer. Good luck to everyone, and good luck to everyone who follows In the Money podcast.
And now I'd like to welcome in my next special guest, someone I can't have a podcast without listening to his ideas or just having him on just to, poke fun if and that. It's Matt Vagvolgyi, friend of In the Money Media. Matt, how are you today?
Doing great, Spencer. Good to see you. And on the eve of a really nice Belmont card coming up.
I think it's a great card. You think it's a good card? Other people don't think it's a good card. We'll have to see how it goes. I know it's a bunch of short fields, but I got some value tomorrow. I think we're going to be all right with a little pick 5, pick 6 action. Yeah,
I agree. I think it's, again, always comes down to game selection, right? I think the longer exotics, the pick 5s and the pick 6s get very interesting. It go both ways. Listen, if you find value, you can play it. If you really like something and it's going to be a shorter price, then you can lever up your bankroll. So I think there's opportunities on both sides of it there. And I think there's a few races where you can get creative. So, and I also think as well, I think there's going to be some strong favorites, but I don't think they're going to be as strong as you think because there's enough talent around, even in these short fields, that I think you'll see some money gravitate elsewhere. So I think you might be surprised some prices you get on Saturday.
We're going to talk about Belmont in a different podcast. Right now, we're going to talk late pick 4 at Lone Star Park, sponsored by Race Lens. Matt, I know you're a very big proponent of using this software and just kind of give people an idea of what they can look forward to when they use this.
Yeah, so going forward, we're doing some more segments of going a little bit deeper of how I use it and how the product is what I think is a good value add. I've been using it since they came out with it. Can't even remember how long that's been, but it's a way where you can do your own research. You can model things in ways that you don't have to have, the background to build it yourself, right? So it's a way that you can find all kinds of data. It draws in everything Equibase has, like literally everything you see on the Equibase sheet. You can pull in, test everything, whether it's post position, whether it's distance, surface, change in surface, pace figures, all that kind of stuff. You can really dive into it. And what I like about it, people ask me, like, what's the number one thing about it that you like that's helped you? You create your own advantages, right? So I'm not buying a product to tell me what they like. I'm doing the research to find what I like and what I think fits. So you're kind of originating your own content, which for me, I think that's where you find edge.
Can't agree with you more. Let's start off with race number 7 from Lone Star Park. It's just a nice little N2L allowance. 7.5 though on the turf course. Dangerous distance. What'd you kind of like in this one, Matt?
I'm gonna two horses that I like. One of them is going to be the two Camaraderie trying the turf for the first time. I just think class-wise, this horse fits. I think breeding, this horse should have been on the turf. I'm surprised it's taken this long to get to the turf. No issues with the distance. Like you said, it can be tricky, and I think there's some speed signed on here too. So this horse should show some early foot. I think 8-1 on the morning line is a bit of a dream. I would love to take that, but I'm going to try this horse for Steve Asmussen on the turf for the first time. That's the 2 again, Camaraderie. The other horse that I'll have as an A as well. Again, kind of the opposite of a pace play is looking at which should be the favorite in this race, the 7, Princess Pauline, which is the morning line favorite. One try on the turf, I thought got an absolute perfect setup and ran everybody down off the pace. I think that same setup can happen again today. So I know that was Maiden stepping into an allowance company. If I look at this field in terms of a power rank, so to speak, of the quality of this field, I think it's very similar to that Maiden race. So I think if the 2 Camaraderie can step out and take them gate to wire, that's one I'd like to have. But if they're going to come off the pace with a little bit of a collapse going this distance, I like the 7 Princess Pauline. Another horse that I would throw in there as a B, probably going to take some money as well, is the 5 Dial 10 for G. It could step out and has proven to go gate to wire. So that's always a dangerous horse, get loose on the front end. I don't think this horse will get as loose as you might think. I think the 8 will apply some pressure. The 2 that I mentioned before will be up there. So I think you might have some hot pace up front. So those are the 3 that I'm going to look at there. So the A's are the 2 and the 7, and a B I'm going to add in as the 5.
I think when I looked overall at this race as well, I think for me, it was, again, like just the outside Princess Pauline, Steve Asmussen, Stuart Elliott. I just think that coming out of that maiden special weight win, had a fast pace. Listen, even though they were 3.5 back, getting that fast pace, it's kind of right in the middle. I like to see horses that can win following fast paces like that. But Color of Win was a little bit interesting as well. Has a race at this level already. Didn't decline so bad. And even when we see that little 5-point drop in the buyers, it was on top of a hellaciously fast pace, going 1 mile. Now we kind of get a small little turn back, and overall, I kind of like the 7 and the 8 here as my 2 main A's. Let's move on to race number 8, 75 N2L, 6 furlongs on the dirt, going definitely down the claiming ladder a little bit more. What do we like in this one?
It's a tough race. I'm going to use a few in here. I'll start with the number 3. Catch Us If You Can. Third off the layoff. Again, I know those weren't the most impressive races, the last 2, but I mean, just gets a ton of relief here. Mm-hmm. I think finds the right class level, finds her friends, so to speak. I think in this race, and looking at some stats through Race Lens. For Calhoun, in terms of on a trainer angle, looking at a couple different things. If you look at it going 6 furlongs on the dirt this year, pretty big sample size, 281 starts, hitting at 22%, and still has a positive ROI of 2%. So again, they're not getting crushed off the board, even with that high hit percentage relative to the sample. And the other one I looked at too is second off a 2 to 6 month layoff. That was a key angle as well. Again, just 20 starts, but again, I think it's a small-ish sample, but I think you can derive some positivity out of it. Hitting at 30% and a positive 86% ROI. So a couple of good things working in that direction there. Again, I just think finds the right class level, finds the right horses to compete with. So number 3, Catch Us If You Can, will be on the ticket there. The number 4, Cost an arm and a leg. I just think fits. I don't know if this is a horse I want to stand alone on, but I think this horse fits at this level. I think can compete. I think will also be up close on that pace. I think this race will be won towards the front end. So I did like the 4 as well. Other horses you can take a look at. I think Aunt Joey is interesting as well. Getting back to the dirt. This level again should also fit, taking a nice little bit of class relief. So those were the 3 primarily. Another one too, the 9 Magic Stardust. As you can see, I'm kind of going through some horses, but I think it's a bit of a confusing race. I think it'll be more towards the front end. If something does melt down, I would throw Magical Stardust, the 9, in there, coming off the pace. Give you another stat for the 9 on a trainer standpoint. Looking at Caldwell's red hot here. Looking at it from the claiming ranks, right? So specifically in claiming races, 108 starts, 30% winners, and a positive 45% ROI. So this is certainly a spot. This trainer does it incredibly well. 3rd start on the dirt as well. So you like that. You like that as well. So those are the horses I'm going to look at here. Probably the 3 and 4 as A's, 6 and 9 as B's. But the way that I construct these tickets, I would classify this leg as a B, where what that means is I want to use combinations of all of these horses at a high percentage, right? So not just the standard A, B, C type structure. I want to focus on this race to utilize these horses as much as I can versus some other legs where I'll get skinny. So, but those are the main 4 that I'm going to concentrate on here.
Pretty much we just got one switcheroo out of all those. Catch Us If You Can. I kind of feel the same way. Calhoun, obviously with a $2 straight ROI, like that's so nice to have. Fast pace again, kind of went out the back, now drops way down. That's such a big key angle when you have, class drop plus pace switch. For me, cost an arm and a leg, I toss this one. I just don't know if this one's going a little bit more backwards. Instead, I'm going to use the number 5, our Southern Girl, who is dropping a little bit in class. And the last time under Carter Royce Jr. had 69-67, which I think would just blow this field right away. Aunt Joy coming off the turf for Tracy Glover. Obviously not the best in term when you're looking at those stats of 7% for the year. But I think this horse fits. A couple of 17s. The maiden race looked really nice off the turf. And Magical Stardust, again, Caldwell, kind of hard not to have him on the ticket. Turf to dirt, 27%. Positive ROI off 45 starts. There's not many, I think, in the game that go turf to dirt that have a positive ROI with that many in the sample. So definitely want to use Magical Stardust as well. For me, probably Catch Us If You Can, Aunt Joy, and the 9 as A's, and my 1 lone B will be our Southern Girl. Let's move on to the next race number 9, that being a N2L allowance, 101.16 miles on the dirt. Matt, how we continuing building our ticket here?
I'm going to get a little bit skitty here. Requisition, the number 2, I think is interesting here. Thought, a couple of nice efforts. I think this race is going to be set up similar to the last 2 races. So, but a couple of nice efforts, got caught in some hot paces. I don't think it's going to be as contentious, or I don't think this horse will be as forwardly placed. So might sit off of it, might get a better trip this time around. So I just think, again, I think it's a good spot pace wise, and I think this horse certainly has a lot of talent. But I will say, I think the most likely winner on the card today, not just in the sequence, I think is going to be the 6, who's going to be, a short price favorite, Beyond Hello. I just think this horse towers over the field, to be honest with you. I know it's hard to say that in a race like this, but again, I think I like those last 2 races, 3rd off of a layoff. I just think this horse is going to be very tough to beat and could shake loose on the lead too. Just could be the speed of the speed and really run everybody off their feet. So I'm going to go with the lone A with the 6 Beyond Hello, and I'm going to go with the lone B, the 2 Requisition. I think those 2 are going to be the primary players in race number 9 here at Lone Star.
I am now terrified because I have a single, and it's neither of those horses. Yay for me. So I'm going to go with number 3, Ardoc. Just like the fact, the last couple of races, obviously the Sunland race was the 70, but came back with that nice little race at Lone Star going 7 furlongs, now stretching out. I think when obviously being 5 by 2 1/4, I think now with the stretch out could be even closer, and maybe it becomes Beyond Hello versus Ardoc. And I've seen so many races over the years where everyone goes, oh, this one should blow the other speed away, and then you're at the turn, and then they haven't burned them away again. Now you're just cheering to the 16th pole, and then usually the other horse finally puts the other one away. But I just think in this spot with Ardoc that having that fast pace should be a little bit closer to the pace. Obviously, won for only 40,000, but that was back at Aqueduct, had a 61. So the last 3 of the 4 last races have been improving. So for me, give me Ardoc here. I'm trying to make some money and not just play chalk, chalk, chalk. Not that it's bad to play chalk, 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 but Beyond Hello for me. The race 2 back did have some blue fractions. I'm going to take a shot here with Ardoc and see if we can get it done here in the 3rd leg. Let's move on to race number 10, 25,000 N3L, 5 furlongs on the turf. Matt, how are we getting paid?
So in the 10th race here, the horse I'm going to concentrate probably the most on is going to be the 8 Ballerini. Again, probably going to be a shortish price again, but I just think it's the right setup going 5 here. I love that outside post. can break and kind of wait and see. This horse can go to the lead and take him all the way around, I think. But also, I think this horse is best sitting off that pace. That claiming field was similar back at Sam Houston, but again, I just like this horse getting back to 5, getting posted to the outside, can sit off what I think is a classic speed and fade type in the 2 Texas Thunder, who I don't like in this, but I just think can sit off, see if that horse drags anybody else into the race. Another horse that I do like that's going to be sitting closer to the pace is Still of the Night. Similar type. I think a similar type setup, can sit off the pace, could save ground and get first run in the stretch. So I think that grouping of, the 8 Ballerini, the 3 Still of the Night, and then also the 5 Rumpus as well, I think fits in here. Again, probably going to be the horse that take the most of the money in the end. But again, I just think they all 3 sit a perfect trip right off that speed and fade type speed. So, but if I were to kind of, put a pick to it, the lone A I'm going to use is Ballerini. I'm going to press this horse, but I'll back up with the 5 and the 3 as well.
I tend to agree with you. Ballerini for me is one I definitely want to use coming off those allowance races. I kind of just feel now you're going to the claiming races. Big drop. The last race was a 73. Fits also at 5. Telling Time for me is another interesting one. Had an absolute perfect setup last time out with a 69. I think it's a close enough, even if this one only drops down 3 or 4 points. Maybe Ballerini just ends up getting a little bit faster pace up front. Telling Time might be able to come from off the lead. Also, Lane Luzzy, not one to not love on a horse, 19%. I think Rumpus as well, just kind of ending it out. Has just been in such good form. 3 of the last 5 races hit the board. And I think this one's finally ready to just take the next step into the winner's circle. And you're getting a really nice price here. Obviously, 5 seconds, maybe a little bit of second itis on this one. But for me, Rumpus is definitely going to be one that I think can spice up. It's only 7-2 on the morning line, but I think we're going to see that one drift up a little bit. So for me, it's definitely 8, 7, and the 5. I want to thank my special guest, Matt Vagvolgyi, for coming on and talking some Lone Star Late Pick 4 with me. Matt, where can people find you? Obviously, for social media, and then also looking forward to more of these Race Lens ideas and podcasts.
Yeah, at BlakersOn22. Feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. Love chatting with folks on there. It's going forward again. Just looking at different angles. Looking at track profiles. We're going to profile some upcoming meets like Saratoga, Del Mar. Just looking at the history of different distances and surfaces and types of horses that have been successful, analyzing pace. We'll also drag in their AI version, which is True Odds. So their AI segment of Race Lens, I think has some interesting things to look at there. Also easy ways to toggle through pace design for the race. So all that stuff we're going to be getting into. And I think, again, to complement the other great handicapping we have here on the network, I think it's a little bit different. We're going to look at more of the statistical side of it to marry the qualitative handicapping of looking at the form. So I'm excited to do it, and looking forward to more episodes talking about it.
We will talk soon. That is for sure. Thanks so much for coming on.
All right, Spencer. See ya.
Today's show also brought to you by our friends at Woodbine. Going to be hearing more about this Woodbine Saturday card in the next segment, but wanted to let you know that the $125,000 Stella Artois Fury Stakes for 3-year-old fillies foaled in Canada is slated for Saturday, June 11th. The 7-furlong race is a key prep on the road to the prestigious $500,000 Woodbine Oaks, presented by Budweiser, on Sunday, July 24th. The $125,000 Queenston Stakes for 3-year-olds foaled in Canada is set for Sunday, June 12th. This 7-furlong race is a key prep on the road to the iconic $1 million Queen's Plate, set for Sunday, August 21st. Other key races on the road to the Woodbine Oaks and Queen's Plate include the Grade 3 $150,000 Celine Stakes and the Grade 3 $150,000 Marine Stakes. Those 1 mile and a 16th events take place on Saturday, July 2nd. Going to be hearing lots more about Woodbine as the season progresses on the In the Money Media Network. And for much more, go to woodbine.com.
And now let's welcome in my last special guest for this week's In the Money Players podcast. It's someone near and dear to my heart, someone I haven't talked to in at least probably 6 months, probably more. It's Drew Coatney of In the Money Media. Drew, how are you?
I'm doing good. Busy a little bit here, Spencer, but all good up in Michigan for the foreseeable future to enjoy the summer and relax in northern Michigan up here. So, how are you? Good?
I'm good, hanging in there. Obviously, PTF a little bit too busy, so always glad to take the guest chair away, and had a fun time talking to Dallas and Matt so far. So glad to have you on as well. I know you're in for a bit of a tight window here, so let's get her started right away. Race number 7 from Woodbine is 125K listed. The Stella Artois Fury Stakes, 7 furlongs on the synth. What did you like in here, Drew?
Yeah, I think this race starts with a pace that looks to be fairly flat, and none of these horses stood out too convincingly. And I'm taking a bit of a price to start things off with. The number 6 into touring. I think that price of 15-1, we're going to get all of that. So I love that we're going to get a nice price when, again, some of those shorter horses have some knocks on them. And this one should be able to sit near the lead and get the first jump. And the figures are a bit light overall when we compare it to this younger bunch. But when you're looking at these younger horses, sometimes you have to understand there is going to be some volatility in terms of performance. And I'm hoping that volatility is favorable to us. With Cassie and Kimura, I trust in this spot. I also want to have Moira, the number 5, on side as well. I think both those races were pretty darn impressive, closing those slow refractions. So I think first time going one turn might be a bit of a challenge here. I'm curious to see how the pace unfolds for this horse, but I think this one's going to be the best of the stalking bunch. So I'm going to stay pretty single with the number 6 into touring and the number 5 Moira to kick things off.
I couldn't get away from Moira. Obviously a short price, but just the fact that had the Mezzarine, ran a solid second with Justin Stein. Now we get Hernandez up in the irons. This is one that had a bit of a – it was weird. Very rarely do you see red hot fraction plus a blue fraction in the same running line. So very interested to see where this one goes. 5-2 is probably a little bit on the short end. Hopefully we get a couple extra horses in there that people kind of split this one so the horizontals and verticals look a little bit better. The only other one I wanted to add was Super Flashy from the 3-post. Gallardo was aboard. Listen, 3 improving speed figures, and that one, last one being a 71, was off of a slow pace. But if this one can improve against a lightly raced 3-year-old, I think this one at 6-1 has got a great price to upset this bunch. Let's move on to race number 8 from Woodbine. It is an allowance race going 1 1/16 miles on the inner turf. What do we like in this one, Drew?
Yeah, this is another one where I'm not finding a lot to trust. So I'm going to start off with something a little crazy and go with the number 4 Philly Eagles at 12-1 with the morning line. Again, kind of a Cassie and a trusted jockey combination here with Emma Jane Wilson getting aboard. But I think there's a bit of a story to tell that this one came over from the UK and did okay. There was a couple trips in those 2 events, and the last 2 specifically, they were garbage in terms of figures earned. But at the end of the day, both of the jockeys gave up as they were entering the top of the stretch, just because I don't think this horse had anything left and was outclassed. So today gets a little bit easier of a bunch, and heck, maybe able to get back to some of that UK form. And I will say, as a comparative, the number 5 Afrata, who did run impressively over the synthetic, it had some similar numbers to this number 4 Phillies Eagles when running over in the UK. So a good perspective to keep that. We're going to either take 2-1 favoritism or 12-1 on a horse who may have taken a little bit longer in Phillies Eagle to get things figured out. So I'll be using the number 4 Phillies Eagle, and then the number 2 Seasons, I think, is just a great horse that for Ellen-J. Foxwood came off that dream trip at Keeneland only to beat by Nevian's Surprise or Sunrise, who's actually racing on the Belmont card this weekend. So I think the number 2 Seasons is going to really continue to improve and has the overall figures, sit the ground saving trip again and try and make a move late on them. I think those 2 are all you need within this race. So the 4 and the 2 for me.
For Seasons, I just kind of wrote in big letters board. Obviously 7 for 7 in the money, 5 underneath placings kind of makes me a little bit nervous. I'm going to add the 4 now that you've brought up that with Philly Eagles compared to the Ephraites overseas form. I just like this last race. Closing into slow fractions, we know it's the JK special. 8-1 obviously gets a little bit worse of a price in this spot. But I think that I've now started to become, if they win first time from overseas, they're going to run just as well second time. I'm more or less ready for that to happen. I thought Lido Key was also a little bit interesting with Kimura aboard for Steven Sherkop. And just the last race under the new barn, 76, did lose by quite a bit, lengthwise, 6 lengths, but at 7-1, I mean, wasn't one that I think the public was super, super aimed in on, and has just been super consistent the last 5 races, all within that 70 buyer rating. So at 4-1, definitely want to take a shot here with Lido Key.
Yep.
Let's move on to race number 9, an optional 62 claimer, 1 mile on the turf. Drew, how are we finishing this race off?
Yeah, I think there's great value in the number 1 Gotta Go. The 4-year-old still has upside left and started the 2022 campaign nicely at Keeneland, closing into those neutral fractions, and then comes back to Woodbine on the synth here today, at second start, and threw in a blah effort. And I think today with the inside draw, this one should be able to set up and save all the ground, stay in touch with the field, and power home. And some might say, well, hey, wait, Rosebud's Hope in this race already beat this runner. But to that, I say going on the inner, Rosebud's Hope got the easy lead, and the inner turf course favors the front end quite well because of those tight turns. So I think getting on this surface in this course will help the number 1 Gotta Go here in this spot. And I'm also going to use the number 6 Sweet Serenade presser with the best back class, and the number 2 Mademoiselle Nova. I think I'm not going to leave that one off the ticket because this one is going to set the pace, and if no one else goes, I think that's a tremendous pace advantage. So 3 horses for me, use all equally, 1, 6, and 2 in this race.
We kind of see the race a little bit differently. I think we have 1 equal horse. For me, I guess I'll just get started. I thought a Fleet Catherine with Gallardo and Kevin Attard. The last couple of races have obviously been slower paced races, 2 and 3 back, but I think was far enough away that you can kind of, give a pass to it. Still ran quite well. That second 2 back, that race fits in really nice here. Stretched out, obviously, off the layoff over the synthetic. Now kind of getting back on the turf where obviously was good enough to run in the dance smartly. So they must think something of this horse in the turf. I kind of like the fact they're kind of in this allowance level now, which I think fits this one a little bit better. Sweet Serenade, same thing with you as well. The last couple of races, obviously the allowance 2 back at Keeneland, nice third there with Gaffney on the board. Came back, declined a little bit for Roger Atfield over the synth. I think getting back onto the right surface is exactly what this one will need. And as a bomb, I thought Saratoga Vision was quite interesting. Not maybe in the same buyer par area as these guys, but I think the last 2 78s and the nice little 4th there under Alderson at 11-1. I think this one has shown that they can finish in the top half of the board and just needs a little bit extra help and luck there to get it done at a solid 12-1. Let's move on to the last race and see how we get paid here. Race number 10, Maiden Claimers, 10,000, 7 furlongs in the synth. Drew, how are we going to cash this ticket?
Yeah, I'm going to be super simple on this one. I'm going to go with the number 9, Same Again Doc, dropping class and might help show some speed like we saw on debut. So maybe this one can get to the lead and not stop. The number 5, Action Point, might, again, be a lone speed if you can't catch onto a theme. I'm looking for a runner that's going to be up or near that pace. And then the number 1, Patio Party as well. The 2-year-old form was pretty good. So if we project that upward a little bit, maybe there's a step forward. So 3 horses, 9, 5, and 1. I wouldn't fault you if you wanted to go all in this because it's a pretty salty bunch here at this level.
I mean, I feel like we're at the back end of a Belmont card here with this maiden claiming race. Patio Party, listen, in these types of races, when they're going to the bottom, I want class droppers. That first and foremost, if you've lost this level already, you're kind of already out. Patio Party for me. Action Point, like you had said. I like the fact that it was in a fast-paced race and was still somewhat forwardly placed in the top 3. I think that can really help out, especially with, I was talking about with Matt Vagvolgyi, dropping in class, but also being, part of the pace early on. And not a lot of horses in here really ran to the buyer par. So give me Summer Harry. I understand that, obviously the numbers don't look that good, but 21% with a positive ROI over the synthetic for this trainer in Francine Villeneuve. I just think that overall at 8-1, this horse can kind of add extra value in case all these other favorites just kind of, do what 10K claimers do and not win the race.
Yeah, don't be afraid to take a stand. I think these are the type of best races to take stands or try and play in value plays where anything can happen in this bunch, especially when you've seen exposed form in some of these races. And at Woodbine, they're always tough and competitive. And you want to make sure you get paid as well as if you're running a lot of your money through the pick 4 or pick 5. So make sure to not hold the horses too accountable in this rank and get creative and get fun with how you're handicapping them.
super excited to have my friend Drew Coatney on. Drew, let's try and make it more regularly at this point and not every 6 months. All right.
Absolutely. And maybe next time we can chat for a little longer and go over some new angles we're finding.
Absolutely. Can't wait for it. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
That's going to do it for today's show. I want to thank all of today's guests. I especially want to thank Spencer Luginbuhl for doing such a great job in my stead on some of those extra handicapping segments as we've been running around with all these people in from out of town. Ask it next week. It's been bedlam around here. Really appreciate Spencer's help as well as that of the other guests to give us the skinny on these races for this loaded Saturday of racing in North America. We'll thank some other people as well, including our founding partners, the TRF, the Thoroughbred Retirement Foundation. We have a link up right now to get seats to the Belmont Stakes. If you are looking for seats, you don't have them yet, go to trfinc.org/players. You can make a donation to the chaplaincy and get those seats. So this is a great way to do it. trfinc.org/players. That's the place that you want to go to get those. And in addition to that, we'll thank 10 Strike Racing. Great to see Marshall Graham. He's been my personal Uber driver this week, and I think that's going to continue today. Appreciate those services very much, Marshall. This show has been a production of In the Money Media. We thank producer Craig for pushing all the right buttons. Our business manager is Drew Coatney. Our chief creative officer is Jonathan Kinchin. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatal. May you win all your photos.